video.
Most people think they have a money problem, but what they actually have is a life balance problem. And that's a completely different conversation because if money alone solves stress, then every wealthy person would be peaceful. And we know that's not true.
That's interesting right away because most people automatically think if I just made more money, everything would calm down.
Exactly. And listen, sometimes more money absolutely helps temporarily. Nobody's denying that. But money amplifies structure, it doesn't replace it. So if somebody has no structure emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, more income often creates bigger chaos with better branding.
Yeah, that's actually true. I know people making very average incomes that seem a lot calmer than people making six figures.
Absolutely. Because income and stability are not the same thing. And honestly, a lot of people don't realize that until later in life. You can have a nice car, have a nice house, go on vacations, have your investments, and still feel completely overwhelmed internally because peace and income are not automatically connected.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people quietly blame themselves for that. They think, why am I still stressed? Why don't I feel happier? Why do I still feel behind?
Exactly. And that's important for people to hear. You're not broken, right? The issue is that most people were never taught how all areas of life connect together. Nobody teaches this stuff. We're taught how to work, but not how to balance life. We're taught how to earn, but not how to manage pressure. We're taught how to chase success, but not how to protect peace. So today I want to break down something I call the four pillars of life balance, which is financial, mental, spiritual, and physical.
Yeah, and what makes this different is you're not separating them. You're saying all four affect each other constantly.
Exactly, because realistically, they do. Everything affects everything. And once people understand that, their entire perspective on life starts changing. I honestly think modern life has become psychologically overwhelming for a lot of people. And not because people are weak, but because the pressure is nonstop now.
Yeah, it really is. And there's pressure from every direction now, right? Like career pressure, financial pressure, relationship pressure, social media pressure. People never mentally shut off anymore.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Years ago, people compared themselves to their neighbor. Now, people compare themselves to the entire internet. And that changes people psychologically because social media create a world where people constantly feel behind.
Even when they're doing okay.
Exactly, because somebody always appears richer, healthier, more successful, more attractive, more disciplined, and people start chasing appearances instead of structure. That's one of the biggest problems today. People want visible success without invisible discipline.
Yeah, and nobody posts the anxiety behind the lifestyle.
Oh, I wish they would. I mean, really? That's so true. Nobody posts the debt, the panic attacks, the relationship fights, the sleepless nights, the burnout. People post the rewards, not the cost. The younger generations, especially, are growing up consuming highlights, like highlight reels of all day long. That affects mental health, whether people realize it or not.
Yeah. And eventually people start feeling like they're failing at life when they're not.
Because comparison destroys perspective, right? And once somebody loses perspective, their pillars start weakening one by one. Let's walk through life stages because this is where people really start recognizing themselves. First, let's talk about the student phase. You're young, you're uncertain, you're trying to figure yourself out. And already there's pressure. What career should I pick? What school should I choose? What if I choose wrong?
Yeah, and realistically, most people at 18 years old barely know themselves yet, but they're expected to make massive life decisions.
Exactly. And then people take on debt immediately. Student loans, credit cards, lines of credit before they've made their first real paycheck. So now financial stress begins, mental pressure rises, and many people start adulthood already feeling behind.
And there's also identity pressure too. People are still trying to figure out who they are, who they want to become, what success even means.
Exactly. And if there's no guidance or structure, people start making emotional decisions instead of intentional ones. That happens constantly. Then comes the young adult phase, right? You finally start earning money. And most people think, okay, now life begins. But what actually happens? Life expands immediately.
Yeah, because now people feel pressure to look successful.
And that pressure is brutal now. People finance lifestyles before they've structurally earned them. Cars, condos, trips, luxury spending, everything becomes image driven. And honestly, credit made that worse. Because years ago, if people didn't have money, they simply couldn't buy something.
Mhm.
Now, People can buy almost anything instantly, even if financially they're drowning underneath it.
Yeah. And sometimes people don't even realize how stressed they are becoming until years later.
Exactly, because the pressure accumulates slowly. People normalize working exhausted, eating poorly, sleeping less, constant anxiety, and eventually they think this is just adulthood, but it's not healthy adulthood. It's imbalance. Now relationships enter the picture, and this is where life gets very real. Because now it's not just your habits anymore. It's two people combining money habits, emotional habits, communication styles, stress, childhood conditioning.
And people don't realize how much childhood affects adult relationships, especially around money.
Right? One person may come from fear around money, another may come from scarcity, another may use spending emotionally, another may avoid financial conversations completely. We've seen those, right? And
Hmm.
suddenly, two people are trying to build a future together without ever learning how to communicate structurally.
Yeah, and small issues become massive fights very quickly.
That's really important, Irene. Money doesn't create problems. Money exposes problems. That line matters because financial pressure reveals communication weaknesses, emotional weaknesses, lack of planning, lack of alignment, and many couples never realize the real issue was structure all along. Now, all of a sudden, children enter the picture. And this is usually where people say, okay, life just became serious at that point because now it's no longer just about you. Now people feel responsibility differently.
Yeah, and honestly, this is where many people stop taking care of themselves too.
Right? Parents sacrifice constantly. Sleep drops, stress rises, time disappears, and many people quietly enter survival mode for years. That's why so many parents feel emotionally exhausted because every pillar starts getting pressured simultaneously. Financial pressure rises, mental stress rises, physical exhaustion rises, spiritual direction weakens, and people stop living intentionally. They start reacting constantly. So let's simplify the pillars. Financial equals stability, mental equals clarity, physical equals execution, spiritual equals direction. And if one pillar weakens long enough, it starts pressuring all the others.
Yeah, and I think people underestimate that connection.
Oh, I mean, massively. If your mental health suffers, your financial decisions suffer. If your physical health drops, your energy and execution suffer. If your spiritual pillar weakens, people lose purpose and direction. And if your financial pillar weakens, everything feels heavier emotionally.
Yeah, and that's why people can feel overwhelmed even when only one area is struggling.
Exactly, because imbalance spreads, and most people wait too long to address it. Let me say something clearly. Most people do not need more information. The internet already gave people unlimited information. It's not the issue anymore. The issue is implementation, clarity, structure, accountability.
People are overloaded with information right now.
And information without structure creates confusion. That's why I've always believed being an advisor should go beyond product. A product alone doesn't change someone's life. Structure does. The planning does. Clarity does. Long-term thinking does.
Yeah, and honestly, that's probably what separates a true advisor from somebody just selling something like investments.
Right? Because a good product inside a bad structure, and we've said this often, right? It still creates a bad outcome. And too many people are sold products without anyone helping them build the actual foundation beneath their life. So let me ask everybody watching this something. How many people right now look successful online but are mentally exhausted behind closed doors? How many couples are silently struggling financially while pretending everything's okay publicly? How many people are making more money than ever before, yet somehow feel more trapped than ever before? How many people are physically drained, emotionally numb, spiritually disconnected, financially stressed, but still wake up every morning pretending this is normal?
Honestly, probably far more people than anyone realizes.
And here's a danger part nobody talks about. People normalize imbalance. They normalize stress. They normalize burnout. They normalize anxiety. They normalize debt. They normalize unhappiness. And they call it being an adult. No, that's not adulthood. That's survival mode. And there's a difference.
Yeah. And survival mode becomes dangerous when people stay there too long because eventually people stop asking if they're actually happy anymore.
That's so true. People get so busy surviving, they never stop long enough to ask, what kind of life am I actually building? Because you could spend 10, 20, 30 years building a life that looks successful to everybody else while secretly feeling empty yourself. And that's terrifying.
Yeah, especially because from the outside, nobody would even know.
And that's why these four pillars matter matter so much. Because if one pillar collapses long enough, eventually the entire structure starts cracking. And most people don't realize it until they burn out. They get their panic attacks, a health scare, a divorce, a breakdown of some sort. The financial crisis finally forces them to wake up. But by then, sometimes the damage is already years deep.
And really, that's why awareness matters because awareness changes things.
100%. So I'll leave everybody with this question tonight. Which pillar in your life is weakest right now? Financial, mental, physical, or spiritual? And don't give the fake answer. Give the honest one. Because the moment people start being honest with themselves, that's the moment growth stops too. And if your life feels heavy right now, maybe it's not because you're failing. Maybe it's because you've been trying to carry life without structure.
And structure changes everything.
Exactly. Because money alone doesn't create peace. Success alone doesn't create fulfillment. Discipline alone doesn't create happiness. Balance does. And the truth is, most people won't change until life forces them to. The question is, will you wait for the breakdown or will you rebuild it intentionally before that happens?
And really, that's keeping it real.
Have a great day, everyone.